with the AEW investigation into the all-out brawl potentially coming to an end soon and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Talking about his wife, Renee Paquette's AEW debut and her reaction to it, Jon Moxley told Cincy 360, "I knew she was going to get a giant pop from the crowd. It's funny, she asked me, should I introduce myself? No, they know who you are. You don't need to. Take a second or two because you're coming out and there is going to be a giant reaction before you start talking." She's like, "No, I'm telling you, no." Sure enough, I didn't even see it. I wasn't looking at the monitor. I was walking down the hallway when she actually stepped out, but I knew just from the sound of the audience, I could tell she walked onto the stage. I heard a "ah," that was the Renee pop. I knew it. Afterwards, she was like, "Whoa, I told you, you gotta listen to me. I know this game." That was really cool. She's been around this whole time and knows people at AEW and has been backstage. It's been like, you don't work here? You don't appear on camera? It felt like a formality. You should probably just work here. With a recent interaction with Rhea Ripley on Raw, NXT star Cora Jade spoke about the possibility of joining the Judgment Day stable, telling Wrestling Inc. "I feel like there's many different options for the future. I feel like obviously there's a lot of goals that I have. I would love to be on the main roster, obviously one day. I think the Judgment Day is great. I love being able to go to Raw and do that little segment with them. I think they have a great look. I'm a big fan of them, but just being able to work with all of these people is really helpful. And maybe one day I'll be either with Rhea or against her. We'll have to see." Speaking to ESPR about becoming a top star in AEW and his experience in pro wrestling, TNT champion Wardlow said, "I was jobless, broke, living at my mother's house in my old bedroom. I was taking a nap because I didn't have anything else to do. I woke up and I had a missed call from QT Marshall. I wasn't even fully awake yet. I'm calling the number back trying to clear my throat and get ready for this phone call. We ended up talking for an hour. We had such a great connection. We both felt how passionate each other were about wrestling, and basically, they had heard my name from a few different people all around the same time. Britt Baker came up with me in Pittsburgh. We were both a part of IWC. We started at the same time. Warrior Wrestling had a couple of people who contacted Cody Rhodes about me. Then Glacier Lloyd, who's affiliated with the Nightmare Factory, did a seminar at IWC and saw me work and said, 'Hey Cody, you might want to take a look at this guy.' Cody was like, 'Alright, I've heard this name Wardlow from like 5 different people. If he'll fly himself to Atlanta, we'll take a look at him.' That was basically their challenge. I borrowed some money and booked a flight that night, and then QT invited a complete stranger into his home and let me stay with him for 3 nights. Him and his wife. I'll never be able to thank him enough for that. Him and I worked in the ring for a few minutes in front of Cody, and it only took 3 minutes and Cody offered me a deal." During his appearance on Busted Open Radio, AEW President Tony Khan hit back at former WCW President Eric Bischoff for him being critical of the product. "There are a lot of really interesting stories happening in AEW. There's this fascinating thing that is happening. I've noticed that things are changing a lot in the perception of how a wrestling card is built over the years. Now there is this perception. I think because this is the way people have seen it done for the most of the last 20 years, I understand it's become to some extent an industry standard, if only for the lack of competition. There is this perception that every match on every show should have a long storyline built as to why it takes place. It doesn't need to be the case for every single match. There is absolutely a lot of story in most of the matches on this show and most matches on a lot of our shows, but sometimes you can see something that is the start of a new issue. Frankly, I think the person who has been incendiary, contradictory, and hypocritical on this entire point is Eric Bischoff. If you watch Nitro, especially the good Nitros from 95 to 98, a lot of the quality of the show was lucha matches and things you didn't expect, and there was a certain exquisite randomness to the card. You turn the show on and it'd be like, hey, Rick Martel versus Perry Saturn, that's cool. Randy Savage versus Bobby Eaton, okay. And various lucha matches that didn't necessarily have build up, but they were fun matches. They weren't the big story matches. Sure, there were a lot of stories happening in WCW, but probably less than half the matches on Nitro had a story, and that was fine. It was the industry standard show. Then it tried to copy the competition and put lots of story where every single match had a story and had two guys having a fight over a cup of coffee and catering, and that just doesn't need to be the case. Sometimes it can be as simple as a challenge and two people fighting to be the best, but the majority of the time, or a large percentage of the time, you should have a story built into a match. But the perception that you can't just have two people come in and fight, it could be the start of something, it could lead to something with different people, who knows? There are a lot of different ways to skin a cat. In this case, to see the person who probably put more cold matches on TV and did it successfully and well say it's an abomination to do it, it's pretty contradictory. Found it very ironic for Eric Bischoff to say, why is this match happening? Why did 60% of the matches on Nitro happen? Honestly, that's when Nitro was a better show before they tried to change it to something else. With the Kingdom Trio making appearances for AEW, it seems they have signed with the company, as Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful said. The trio of Maria Kanellis, Mike Bennett, and Matt Taven finished up with Impact Wrestling at the Bound for Glory tapings and dropped the Impact Tag Team Championship, but it hadn't aired yet. As a result, they appeared on AEW television while in canon being Impact Champions. When asked about his current relationship with the original members of the Nexus, Heath Slater said on 11:40 a.m. Las Vegas, "We still got a group text. I swear to God we do. Every one of us is in it. Darren Young, of course, too, because he's my brother." Most recently, Heath and Gabriel, currently known as PJ Black, battled at the Figure Wrestling Federation in a cool match for Heath's FWF Interstate title, which he successfully defended. Don't get me wrong, we're all still buddies. Ryback's a little insane. I love him though, man. He'll always be a brother. Talking about Dominic Mysterio's current run with Judgment Day and WWE, Bully Ray had a suggestion for the star on Busted Open Radio. "I love the relationship with Rhea. I love Rhea constantly being in his ear. Taking shots at Eddie Guerrero will always get you heat, saying that Eddie Guerrero was the Dominic Mysterio of his generation. Getting back to the name thing, I know they did the angle years ago with Eddie possibly being Dom's dad. What about Dominic taking the Guerrero last name over the Mysterio last name? After hearing Dom talk last night, I'm saying to myself, wouldn't it be monster heat for Dominic to renounce, drop, get rid of the Mysterio last name? There can be nothing more insulting to the family than for Dom to say that he is disgusted by his last name. He's disgusted with ever being associated with his father." While Seth Rollins is claimed to be on the level of Roman Reigns, Ric Flair took to his podcast to disagree as he said, "Look at Seth Rollins. He's been 10 different things. You know what he was the best at? Being the architect, because he's really strong and technical in the ring. But since then, I can't even keep track of all of it. I know why it is. It's all to sell merchandise. I saw where he compared himself to Roman Reigns. I don't think that's even close." Going into detail on his long-standing friendship with Triple H, Shawn Michaels said this about him on Impulsive. "I know everybody can only see him now as the head cheese, but he wasn't then. I was the top dude at that time, and he was the guy still waiting for his first break, and he was a friend of mine. He was the best friend of the most hated guy in the company and in the business, and he never left my side. He could have thrown me under the bus at any point, saved himself, you know what I mean? For me, that's the kind of stuff I can cry about, but how can I not give every ounce of myself for whatever he needs me to do?" A man in Texas robbing a store was seen wearing a toy WWE title belt, as KWTX reported. The Temple Police Department is searching for a WWE champion suspected in an armed robbery Tuesday evening. Officers were dispatched at 9:49 p.m. October 26th in the 1100 block of South 1st Street, where the suspect entered the store, displayed a gun, and demanded money. After taking an undisclosed amount of cash, he fled on foot. No injuries were reported. The suspect is described as a black man wearing a blue long sleeve Nike shirt, WWE Championship belt, glasses, and no shoes. When When it comes to the investigation into the brawl between CM Punk and the EVPs of AEW, Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, this thing feels like it's wrapping up. It feels like the Young Bucks and Omega are coming back somewhat soon. Of course, CM Punk is reportedly in talks for a contract buyout, with it said that a potential non-compete clause is holding up this process. Talking about it being the perfect time for Triple H to sign CM Punk to WWE, Jim Cornette said on his podcast about the non-compete. Right now, I would have said at any point in time, no, Punk doesn't want to go back to WWE. Punk doesn't have to go back to WWE. He's still got his FU money. He's going to get bought out for a lot of money if that happens here, or else if he comes back, he gets paid a lot of money. Nobody's going to be doing any GoFundMes. But now would be the perfect time for Triple H to show the world that he will put business in front of personal feelings. Because again, one of the greatest lines in the history of wrestling, it was never uttered on television, was what Punk said to Triple H in the locker room. I don't need to work with you, you need to work with me. But that's not, I hate you and your family and I hope Stephanie gets run over by a herd of thundering goats or whatever. But here's the thing, there's no real apologies that Triple H needs to ask for, he needs to offer some. Who was in charge? Vince McMahon? And 8 years later, whatever it is. Now, depending on what this non-compete clause is, Triple H can go and save the world and say to CM Punk, it's all changed. We're all about business, let's get together. It's all about business, no personal feelings. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.